Hello, welcome back. This is part 2 of the vapor return line on my 69 Mustang that I'm installing today. It's been about 2 days since I have drained the tank. I basically just haven't had time to get out here, so it's a good thing. There's no more really fuel fumes or anything hanging around to worry about explosions or any, things that you watch on Final Destination happening. I don't think that happened anyway. I've done this plenty of times right after I've drained the tank, but this will make it easy and just less fumey. So bring you in here. All right, so what I normally do just to help out, make things easier, get underneath the vehicle, etc., I just go ahead and jack up the rear end, and that way basically make gravity happen as easily as possible. Get all the fuel out. So what I normally do on these, your main line right here, see my hose clamps here? These are shut off pinch clamps. You can get them in all different sizes. I think these are Blue Point ones I got off Snap-on a few years ago. But makes it really nice and easy for shutting off lines if you don't want things to leak out. Basically, I just put a 5-gallon bucket right underneath here and let my normal outlet do all the work. Disconnected it from the main line right here and just let it drain out. Then once it stopped draining out, I'm actually lucky enough, this is a newer tank, about 10 years old, and I have a drain plug right here. Believe it or not, after this was done draining, even though the rear end is just jacked up, I probably got another ½ gallon out of the plug here. So quite a bit actually does sit down in this lower baffle. It's really kind of interesting because, this is a 20-gallon tank for 69. And really, I bet you probably only actually get 19.5 gallons if you really want to be technical for when you run out of fuel and what have you. So, getting to it, now I can remove this line and take a punch and loosen this lock ring here and remove my sender. Alright, so before we get started, I do want to say that here's the lock ring. It's a metal lock ring, it's steel. Now obviously you have a steel gas tank and a spark can cause a bad situation. You're supposed to use a brass punch or drift. I do not actually own one of those, and I'm probably not going to ever own any of those. So what I do is I actually take one of my normal chisels and wrap it with a few layers of electrical tape. Makes a decent little barrier and, pretty much stops the event of having a spark or anything of that nature. So the first thing you want to do is, I already done it. You disconnect your little sender wire here. I'm going to unpinch the pliers, take off the hose, and then in a counterclockwise motion, hit this lock ring with a hammer a few times. It'll loosen this. This sending unit will fall right out. Give a little twist to loosen the hose. Pull. Hopefully no gas will come out in my face, mainly my mouth. Or as luck always has it, my eyes. A nice twist. This line's probably been on here for 3 or 4 years. God, it wasn't falling off on its own, that's for sure. Alright, so now I got my gas fumes back again. Smell them. So again, that makes this even more safe. And just a few little punches, you can see it moving very quick. There, that lock ring's out. See how we did. I'm going to put my lock ring right there. Keep it out of the way. The sending unit's going to just hang there. Move it a little bit. And I'm going to put this in the box. There's nothing wrong with it. So, a little gas. I am going to put this off to the side, wrap it back up in the plastic. Float's still in good condition. The sender worked. So now I don't know if you can see this or not with the camera light, but you can actually see haze from all the fumes coming out of that tank, even though it's been drained for 2 days now. So that's exactly why you need to do something that doesn't allow for sparks. All right, I do want to note a lot of times your O-ring will stick up right in here, and when you pull it out, it doesn't look anything remotely like what it looked like when you put it in. Obviously compresses quite a bit. The new kit did come with a new lock ring and an O-ring, and on the reviews it actually stated that this kit came with a really thin O-ring, so they had to end up, people in the past had to buy a brand new O-ring because they said the size was incorrect and would leak. It's actually not the case I ran into. To be safe, I bought one because I think they're like $4 from CJ Pony Parts. So I just bought it with the order, so I didn't have any problems. But I actually pulled out my micrometer, and the difference between the O-ring that came with the kit and the one that was from CJ's was 0.07 millimeter for thickness, and the height was actually exactly the same. So whether people in the past have just messed up installation or that they've remedied this over time, I'm not sure which, but at least with my scenario, that wasn't the case. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up here and be back in a second. We'll top this O-ring right in. All right, I got some little Scotch-Brite, and I am going to work my way around here. Do not see any imperfections. Like I said, this is a newer tank, so I'm not really worried too much at all. In fact, I think what I'm scrubbing off more than anything is remnants of grease. A little corrosion, but nothing really to get worked up about, honestly. These lock tabs that are actually built onto the tank, pretty much up here, in good shape. They're not bent up. Those are actually brass, I do believe. It's not steel. I think they do that actually for the whole spark deal, so you don't make a fire yourself. I always just go ahead and test fit this O-ring. It will go on pretty much like that, all the way around here. It kind of sits in that crevice. You'll notice, obviously, the tank's not upside down, so gravity's working not in our favor. So what I do is I take a little bit of grease, a little wheel bearing grease, whatever you got, and I just put a little light coat around it, and then that way when you pop it up there, the grease will stick in that, and that will actually help it stay in place. Alright, so off camera, I just did some fitting, and I also slathered my O-ring up here with grease, made sure everything fit right. I got everything stuck on for that. Okay, so that's up in there. I have my lock ring next to me ready. I have my punch ready and hammer. The other thing I want to say is for locating these, point this at you. There are these two tabs on the side, here and here. That is your location dowel, okay? So you got your sender up top, just like the old one was. If you need to take pictures before you take them out, put them in. If you're not, comfortable with doing this, then do it to help. And remember, this is also not a, if it doesn't fit, force it kind of a job, okay? You pretty much have one shot at this unless you have a second O-ring on standby, which is always a good idea because things do happen. Right, so you get this already, and you're just going to very gently, okay, put that in. You don't want to hit your wire. You don't want to have anything come loose. Right? There's no reason for it. There's nobody standing over us right now. Okay, we just very gently get it in. All right. right, I'm gonna position myself. If I take you out of view, I'm sorry. Line that up. And then gentle. Again, see, this is exactly why. Get everything lined up. So once you touch that O-ring, it's going to want to fall. See, I'm showing you this because everybody always acts like in person they can get something done in 3.2 seconds or less. That's not ever the case. Anybody that tells you that they can just throw one of these up in 3 seconds or less, they're just lying to you. These are a pain. You don't want to make any fast movements, bend the tangs, mess your sender up. It's like this right now fell out. So, see, I ain't lying to you. This ain't a 2-second thing. To see if people actually struggle here. If you want to fast forward, I understand. It's not the most fun thing to watch, but I do want to just show you that when you get under here and it doesn't just fall right in, you're not the only one. Okay, gonna go for number 2. Got everything in its right location. Gently put her in. There. Now we're set. Okay, that one much better. See, take your time. You can do it. Now's where you need 4 hands or so. Okay, got my brand new lock ring here. You can reuse these if you really want to. I just don't like to. You give them to you anyway with the senders, so you might as well use them. Sure, every time they lose their luster and strength. Usually, sometimes you can get lucky enough that you can get them started on their own. Couple little love taps here. Okay, now that I got everything in this way, I'm just going to go ahead and hold that with my chisel. Obviously, I need to make a tool for this, and I don't have it. If you're lucky enough to have one of them tools, use it. It's actually just shaped just like this. You take it and you twist here. So I'm going to get this tightened real quick. Put you guys on pause so you don't have to watch any more suffering. Alright, I'm back about 3 minutes later after some tapping. Basically what you're wanting to do, tap a little here, tap a little there, tap a little there, tap a little there. It'll try to walk on you and then eventually it will start tightening. There's really no quick way around it if you don't have that crank tool. And really it's not worth buying it unless you really want to have that tool just for no reason. So the one thing you want to make sure to do is you get the tabs all lined up to their end point. This is good and sturdy. Okay, it's not going to come out. You can give it a little wiggle, but don't yank too hard, obviously, because you can break the brazing on your outlets. I am going to go ahead and just pop this on. So now the sun sender is completely connected. Now I can get on to the other parts. I go ahead and I put a filter on the end right here. It's just an easy way to keep extra junk out of your fuel. I know it's overkill because there's a strain from the tank and some people don't like to put them after, out of the tank, and there's all kinds of stuff people say about, oh, you can't do that, it causes problems. And really, how is it going to cause a problem? There's a filter on the inside of the tank here. If that was a problem, then they wouldn't put that in there. All this is just catching extra junk that happens to get past that screen. So I'm going to go ahead and put a new filter in line here, and then hook up the line, and then we can actually get to starting to run the 1/4 inch line for our vapor return. All right, so next thing to bring up. These cars really didn't have much room anyway for fuel lines. So I ran my own instead of buying the factory replacement ones years ago because I wasn't spending that much money for lines. My car's not perfect. I don't claim it to be. It's a great driver. Okay, I'm gonna try to get you up in here. You can see the wheel clearance and everything just is not accepting of very much room. So I'm going to have a small amount of room to get a line up here. And what I plan on doing is running the line one right next to the other. So like right up here, I have this Edelman clamp. I'm just going to go ahead, put one right on the left side of that line incoming. I'm going to use that same bolt, and I'm going to do the whole thing all the way down. I'm going to use the same bolt hole and just have adjacent running lines using Edelman clamps. It'll work fine. Clearance will be tight. Won't be perfect, but you get the story. Got to make a half section, and then I got to get under the front left wheel and run the rest of that all the way down to go into a hole. Put a grommet in because I don't want to share the same hole in case, you know, the lines do try to rub. So that's what I'm up to next. All right, so we got the back wheel off here, and I'm looking at my little hump here. And I've always been worried about this just getting crushed by the wheel. I know you got this little stop here for where the wheel's supposed to hit. This line's actually where the factory line was from years ago. I know I haven't painted it. Not going to. Not now. Anyways, I know for sure if I run my line up here, I won't have any clearance issues with the wheel slamming down on it. So I'm going to follow that routing when I get up to here. I could put it down here, but I really just don't feel safe. I don't know how much, if any, or at all, the wheel has ever touched here. I don't see any signs of it, but I don't like taking chances with fuel. So I'm going to route it up here further and then come on down, tap into this Edelman clamp, and run right next to that line. Again, not perfect, but be just fine. I'll run that all the way down until I hit that splice right there at the torque box. Back in a few. All right, so here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to take this factory clamp, which hangs onto this line this way, and I'm going to have this clamp going through. Okay, I'm going to sandwich this thing. And it's going to hold, if I can get my fingers to work, going to hold both of them, okay? Just like that, right next to each other. I'm going to go right on down the line, make everything all nice and happy, okay? Okay, so here we are putting this one on. I had to drill these out to the next size up, so I just used my step bit real quick. Made some quick work of that. If I can get this to fit. You know, if it doesn't fit, force it is fine on this section. All right. That's sticking up through here. I'm gonna have to just use my ratchet. Get the rest of the way through here. so I can get this end tab on. I will say, once you get these semi-tight, if they're the right size, man, they grab that line. So if you're ever wondering about if these things sliding around while you're driving, really don't think so. I just again back to somebody tells you they do it in 3 seconds or less. They're full of it. All right, now I got it on. I had to turn you off so I could fight with it for a while because it was being angry. So I have 8-oh-wing clamps on. I have the line pretty close to where I want it. Okay, it goes right next to everything. The only thing I don't like, there's a little spot in here where it's a little flimsy where I'm sure wind could get it. So there's nowhere really for me to put a clamp on because, well, there's the floorboard and the rocker. So I'll address that in a bit. Haven't decided what I'm going to do here yet, so I might show you what I come up with in the end. But I will say, this 1/4-inch line, man, you really have to be careful with it. It wants to, even with the real bender, it wants to kink on you. There's just not a whole lot to it. So, and that was just a 90-ish degree bend. I did check. It does flow fine. So, just got to be careful. Gave myself a little itty bitty bit of a flare to hold a hose clamp on. It's kind of all you really need. You don't want to make it, you know, too large to where you can't slip a hose on over it. Here's going to be my next problem. I didn't really think of. So that, if you can see that, there's my torque box, right? So there's my torque box. And that line passes through there. There's the e-brake cable, what have you. There's not a whole lot of room in there. Not really sure what I'm going to do yet. I don't know if running it right next to the line will even fit or if it's a good idea. There's really not a whole lot of room for me to do much of anything. I might be able to put a sleeve on that line, run it next to it. That way, even if it does touch, it won't rub through. But here's my next obstacle. Okay, so it's time to be finished with the back part. I got this routed the way I want it. Okay, underneath there, sharing the 8-oh-wing clamps going all the way over, and be under here, slide off right into the tank. Everything's good, solid, away from exhaust. All my connections made. Clamps are all good and tight. Fat finger out of the way. Ends are okay for the time being. I'm just going to put a little bit of rubber hose there just so in case it wants to rub. I doubt it will, but you know, good enough. Okay, that'll be all hidden. It's exaggerated by the camera, I think, right now. Now it's time to put the back end down, put the wheel back on, jack this side up, the front left, and then we're going to be able to make that line go through. I think I'm just going to go ahead and go through the torque box. Right next to that line, I'll probably cover it with some sheathing or something, just in case it wants to rub, but nothing too terrible. All right, so got the front up. front wheel off so I can get to everything. Just gonna go ahead and just gonna have to use that hole. It's much larger on this side than on the other side of the torque box, but probably gonna sheathe the line to make it work. I'm gonna bring it over. There is the factory fuel entrance. Haven't decided if I'm just gonna use this body plug, which is known Ford for the California cars that had the evap return. I'm betting that's probably what they used. So I'll probably pop that out or take a drill bit, because this is just a rubber plug. Put it in right through there. Route the line right on top of it. I can't see them doing anything fancy from the factory. In fact, I think it's the best option for the return area, because if I put it back further here, let me right by the exhaust. I should just be able to put it right there, and I think the way it looks, that's probably my plug, which is right about in line. I can bring in a little bend, bring it down, have a rubber connection just like they would have done from the factory. Normally, right here is where you're going to have the filter. So I'm going to put that there, make a couple extensions, and we'll be set. All right, so remove my old 3/8 line. I have a steel line coming off right down there at the fuel pump. Focus. Nope. Okay, kinda, maybe. Anyway, I'm gonna put this filter right about here, and then I'm going to connect the Holley with an adapter like this, keeping it off of the intake. Probably bend it just so it's a wee bit farther away from the distributor, so I can get as much engine heat off of it as possible. And that will complete this section. And when you're doing this, you want to either mount it like this to where the fuel is coming level and the vapor return is at the top, so it doesn't try to feed the vapor return before it gets the carburetor. So basically you want the vapor return section always to be at the top point. So mounting it sideways like this, it's going to fill up and go up to the carburetor first. And then if problems occur or it tries to deadhead itself, then it will send the excess fuel or vapor out of this top port here and take it all the way back. So I'm going to get this buttoned up. Alright, so here's another perfect example of why your initial plans don't always pan out. So, got this here. These connections are all made. I have the filter the way that I want it to be, just so it's not rattling around or hitting anything. What my initial plan was to do was to bring this up through here, kind of make a loop, this metal line, bring it out underneath it here, and bring it on over to this connection, and get some light down there. So where this screwdriver is sticking out is right into that power steering pump. If I didn't have power steering, it wouldn't be nowhere near an issue. The problem I have is that the second that this comes through here, I'm going to have to make a bend. I really don't like that. It just, I don't know, it irks me, and how I'm going to make a nice, good, stable connection. So I'm pondering on what I should do. Probably should make another hole, a new one, right here next to it, down against the next factory fuel line, which would then put me into this area at the end of the world, but it gets me closer to that shock tower, and I hate putting holes in when I don't need to. Another thing you could do would be to loop it around this way But that just looks terrible. Looks gaudy. So I'm going to think on that, see what I can do to make something more permanent. Alright, so final update. It's about a day later. I finally have this thing all buttoned up. Before I close everything off, I'll show you what I've done. I'm 90% happy with this thing. It wasn't as easy of a fit as I expected it to be. I knew obviously anytime you modify what's not original, you know, it tends to be difficult, but this definitely proved to be more of a task than I was expecting. So I'll flip you around. All right, here is the line. I ran it through the torque box, followed right around there. I used that bolt, added a strap onto factory setup through here. I drilled a hole, put a body grommet, and used that and the Edelman clamp side by side. So it's real sturdy. You know, it doesn't have any movement. I'm not worried about any bouncing or causing any rub through leaks. There's this. I just have to obviously put that last little quarter extension on there. I'll probably shorten that line just a smidge. And yeah, that's about it. I ran it, followed it right along the factory routing, and well, now it'll be time to test it out. And obviously, not really worried about any running issues, but being that it's the beginning of April here, and we're just now barely hitting 60 degrees on a weekly basis, probably won't be until the end of May or early June until I can actually report back on whether or not this solved my issues. Really, the vapor lock issues I had wouldn't occur until after 75, mostly 80 and above, especially after long rides, sitting in traffic, sitting in the school line to pick my kids up. It always would happen. So that's it on this episode. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, and I'll continue to put more out. Thank you. Almost forgot. One of the reasons that I was going to do this too was to see, what's fuel gauge reading now? All right. Okay, you can see that. All right, so tank has absolutely no gas in it. Sender's hooked up. We're all level. Key on. Where are we at? Let's see if it helps here. Dead nuts empty. All right, so that's perfect. In fact, that's great because when it used to be empty on the old sender, it's actually below empty. So that's cool. All right. Pause for a second. I'm going to put exactly 5 gallons of gas in here. Exactly 5 gallons of gas. And a gas can. So take me a minute, be right back. All right, so for you know what purposes, I'm gonna put 2 gallons in, just see where we're at. See if you can get, all right, key on. See where she goes. That's with roughly 2 gallons. Still shows empty. That's gonna be rough, actually. Oh, maybe a millimeter of creep. Huh. Well, that's not gonna be easy to tell. All right, keep going. Okay, I just put exactly 5 gallons in it. I haven't even seen what the level reads yet. Run back on in here. Just wrap off my foot. All right, you're gonna see what I'm seeing for the first time for how much 5 gallons is. Okay, my key on. Now again, this is supposed to be what a 15-gallon tank would read. Wow. Okay. All right, that seems to be where it's about settled. So an 1/8 tank is going to be 5 gallons left. A 20-gallon tank, making the assumption quarter tank would be 10. 3/8 tank be 3/4, and a half tank would be full. But let's be honest, it's probably not going to work that way. So, yep, that's where it's settled out. So, all right, we'll try 10 gallons, 15 gallons, 20 gallons at the pump, and then we'll be all set for where we're going for power tour, so I know how much fuel I have. All right, thanks again for watching.